Yeah, if you guys, what I want to call your attention to is if you look at the top line that's in bold, it says 2009-2010 approved budget, in parentheses, town. This is the number that corresponds with page 36 of the budget detail, and this is the town operating budget with debt service removed. And you'll see on that back page, on the summary page, that Mr. Carino always takes the debt service out, takes capital expenses out. So this is the operating budget. Now, what I put below that are just three of the major categories that we have to look at. Benefits, which is employee benefits for the town of Bethel, exclusive of the Board of Ed. That is not included in that. Contractual salary obligations. These are obligations to the current bargaining units, and it includes a contingency for the two bargaining units that are coming up for renegotiation right now. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about that when we get to that line. The third item is utilities. Now, reading from left to right, you can see that what I've done is I've put in the increase in each of those three areas versus the prior year, and I bring down a subtotal in that column to the right. Beyond to the right of the double lines, it says percent versus prior year by department. That first number you see, 13.9%, that tells you that the $618,000 increase in employee benefits represents a 13, almost a 14% increase on that one line item. And here's where it gets really interesting. To the immediate right of that, 3.28%. This is the impact on that town operating budget. So before we even look at things that need to be done for the town, we're just with that one line item, we've already taken the $18 million, almost $18.9 million, and we've had to add 3.28% just for the employee benefits. Now, on the far right, you'll see the cumulative impact on the overall operating budget. Again, this is without debt service. Debt service actually makes things even worse. So when you add salaries, that now brings us up to 5.09% increase. When you add utilities, that brings us up to 6.49. And again, if you go to the back page on page 36 and look at the summary, on this same line, the overall budget increase is 6.99%. And 6.49% is just these items, unless we can continue to do something about these items, plus some other things that are in the budget. A couple of things I wanted you to know. I put some notes on here for you. Benefits. Why is there a big change in this line? We assumed, I should say, the comptroller's office and previous boards had assumed that an 8% growth rate would be a conservative number. Historically, it has been, but last year, with the collapse of Wall Street, the fund growth was actually a negative 8%. So on the pension line, we have to make up 16%, which causes the town to have to contribute more money to that line. Contracted salaries are what they are, but please be advised that I have put we have 4 bargaining units with the town of Bethel. Today I notified the 2 bargaining units that are not up for renegotiation. I'm requesting them to reopen their contract and consider a freeze for a year. And I will schedule a meeting with them at the earliest convenience when they have a chance to gather their thoughts and talk to their membership. But I'm asking for relief from the unions in that regard. We will also go into negotiations with the other 2 bargaining units, and I will be asking them the same thing. I'm going to be using some of the recent history with our other units on the Board of Ed side as where there has been some flexibility as a guidepost, and hopefully we can all work together on that, which is my goal. The utilities line, this is a 12.5% increase on that line versus the prior year. This not only reflects a change in some utilities, but it also reflects that $191,000 for the new water fire hydrant rates that I mentioned in one of our early meetings. Now, this could be modified a little bit depending on what the Public Utilities Commission does. There is a study being done. A consultant is going to be coming back to that commission and making a recommendation on revamping the entire structure of how we charge for water, sprinklers, industrial hydrants, and try to bring some equity in this. But keep in mind what I told you on that early presentation, that our water department is operating at a deficit. It's currently in debt to the town to the tune of $1.3 million. When I spoke to you a couple months ago, it was $1.2 million. It's not getting any better. So one way or another, we have to find a way to work together and handle some of these charges, because right now the town of Bethel is basically the banker for the water department, which, as you guys know, has to operate as it's not legally a separate entity, but financially it is. It has to operate at least on a break even, and it has to get out of the hole to the debt it owes to the town. I've noted here a couple of potential reductions to the budget, which I cannot calculate at this point, and it's really in your purview anyway as the financial body in town. As you guys will remember, one of our recent meetings, Barry Carino mentioned very briefly, actually you might not have been there, it might have been when Mr. Slifkin and Mr. Roden were present, but Barry mentioned that he had last week had just received a fax from the town's financial advisor that there may be an opportunity to restructure some current debt, and the savings could be as high as $480,000, maybe even more, $480,000. I did not reflect that in here because obviously I can't. That is something that Barry has to do with your group, but that would of course have a significant positive impact on the overall operating budget. The second thing is roads and capital improvements. I mentioned to you earlier that we have some very, very pressing needs in that area. We have some roads that are still becoming barely passable. They need to be addressed. I did not pull. I think I mentioned to you that my idea was to propose an infrastructure bond issue to handle some of that at a time when the middle school bond was coming off. That debt was being retired. A relatively, and I say relatively small infrastructure bond would allow us to spread the repair cost over a number of years and still provide a pretty substantial debt relief to the taxpayers. So we, in a way, there's one of those rare windows when you can have your cake and eat it too and try to get some things caught up that have been put off for a great number of years. But as it stands right now, there's still $500,000 shown in the road account that Andrew originally proposed. You may elect to pull more over into an infrastructure bond. We can work together on that. But again, both of those things together, the fact that I can't reflect the restructuring of a bond savings, and I haven't really touched the road account, tend to magnify the overall impact of the budget and the number I have so far. So before I go into the line by line, are there any questions on that?
Just for the sake of accuracy and the benefits of the line that you have here, the increase, that you said that didn't reflect anything from the Board of Education, but it does. Of the 180 active pension employees, 50 are in the Board of Education.
Oh, yes, you're right.
The janitors and paraprofessionals. So
you're right. Thank you for the correction.
That is, they are in the benefits account.
I had medical in my mind, but you're right. When you're dealing with some of those.
So they would be, partially, along with the town side, why the pension fund was such an increase in the pension fund.
Right.
There's 130 full-time employees on the town side and about, I think, 50 on the Board of Ed that are full-time that are covered by the pension, in addition to those who are receiving.
Mm-hmm. So noted. Any other questions or comments before I go through this? All right.
Well, let's go start with count 100. I think, as I know you've made, after sitting through last Thursday night, and I know you've made some number of changes on the town side of the budget.
Account 100 was reduced by only $1,000, which was a minor adjustment to salary. So that we recommended $185,315.
I'll flip through these and just slow me down if I go too fast.
That's okay. Go ahead.
All right. Account 110, treasurer, that was funded as requested at $6,750. That was no change from the prior year. Finance department, that was funded at $369,882 as requested, and that is an increase. The prior year was $336,216, and the difference is in the payroll coordinator, where it, I think as Barry explained that night, it is not possible to set up the new payroll system and operate it on a part-time basis. It needs full-time attention. Account 130, town clerk. We recommend funding at the level of $211,580. This was a reduction of $3,200. And after speaking with the town clerk, she agreed that the very minor change, mileage could be reduced, contract services could be reduced by $1,000, and the codification and microfilming account could be reduced because she's going to put off the 5-year merge for 1 year. She can do that without any harmful effects on her operation, but that's all the increase that she had in there for that. So that has to go. Account number 140, assessor. We recommend funding at the level of $185,496. That is a reduction of $19,380. What we removed was the $17,180 request to move the person up from part-time to full-time, and $2,000 in office expenses. And I hope I don't get somebody in trouble on that. I know that postage has gone up, and we're just going to have to squeeze that down. Account number 150, tax collector.
Just on the this was you made this reduction on Thursday night or Monday night?
Actually, we did the $17,000 Thursday night, and we did the $2,000
Monday night. I thought.
Yeah.
And did you talk to the assessor about that?
Yes.
She was comfortable with
yes.
it?
Yep. Number 150, tax collector, requesting funding at $189,689 as requested. I made no reductions there. I want to explain that too. There's an increase in office expense there, and I looked at that as I did with other departments. With the increase in postage and the increase in advertising rates, where we have to put legal notices in the newspaper, I felt it could be very detrimental to try to reduce that budget, because what that would mean is that Mrs. Skako would, if she didn't have enough money to send out delinquency notices on tax bills, which has happened in the past sometimes, as she explained to me, it could affect her collection rate. The faster she sends out delinquency notices, the faster she's able to collect. So I wanted to make sure that we protected our revenue stream in that area. Moving on to account 160, professional services, we reduced this line by $5,000, and the amount we requested is $186,380. The $5,000 for engineering services is for an engineering consultant who was brought on board back when we were doing a lot of work on the high school roofs. He was a special roofing consultant. As soon as how we're done, we have a good contractor who's handling the roofs for us and taking care of the warranties. We felt that this was no longer needed.
And that's still at $10,000, right?
What's that?
Over the last year's budget, this is a $10,000 increase.
Yes, right. And that's, yeah, I'm sorry, I meant to point that out. That change is in litigation on line 352, which is actually that number of 100. We put in Barry requested 130,000 for that. Frequently it's gone way over that, but we'll try to stay out of trouble, I guess. Number 170, probate court. request funding at the level of $3,600 as requested. This is almost a $950 increase over the prior year, and frankly, I'm not even sure that that's going to be needed. As you know, the probate court, the district court is moving here. Judge O'Grady put this budget in to make sure that if there were any modifications, that we would have that covered. It's supposed to be reimbursed by not only the state, but by the other towns that participate in the district court. So it's a relatively small amount, so we left it as is. Number 180, building inspection. Again, I reduced office expenses on this by $950. Dues and education I reduced by $1,500. I tried to, after speaking with Gary, I tried to leave enough money in this account for certification training and classes that they did. But some of the travel conferences and things, I know they're valuable, but I think we have to keep people certified, keep them educated, but also we have to stick in town for the time being. So we requested funding at the level of $207,899. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. This is my bad ear, so I'll if you have any questions, just holler. Account number 190, data processing. Requested funding at the level requested, which is $134,723. This is all contractual, so there's really nothing we can change in this regard right now. Number 200, social services. Requesting funding at the level of $58,038. This is an $1,150 reduction. Again, as with the other line, with dues and education, left some money in for certification, but not necessary to travel. I reduced the mileage expenses slightly by $150, and this is based on prior history. I looked at 2 years' usage, and I think this is more than adequate for the travel that she needs to do. And I reduced the eviction and storage budget by $500. We haven't really seen that much usage yet, and hopefully the economy is getting better, and we're not going to see that. We're going to see some improvement in that department, in that particular activity over the next year. Town insurance, number 210, requested $771,550 as requested by the comptroller.
Now, do you know when the negotiations will be done with the insurance for the next year, so we know if this is an accurate number or not?
We're trying to get that done before the end of April. We should have a pretty good number, and I didn't bring that up, but there could be a change in that number, because at this early stage you have to go a little bit more conservative, as you know. Number 220, fleet management. Requested funding in the level of $330,773. We reduced 5 line items here after speaking to the department and looking at usage and looking at some of the factors that they have to deal with, such as aging equipment, increase in cost in supplies, increase in cost in contracted repairs. So we tried to give them a little bit more to work with, because we know they have to maintain our police cars, they have to maintain the town vehicles. So we tried to give them, and we know that those costs are going up. So I think one of the big bucket loaders has to literally be stripped down to the bare metal, repainted, repaint the rims, resurface them, put new tires on them. We basically just split the difference on the requested increase. We gave them a little bit more to work with, and we'll have to just work to prioritize the things that need to be done. So there are reductions in equipment and supplies, maintenance highway, maintenance police, clothing allowance. This is more or less a typo, because the contract that they're currently on requires a smaller amount than the prior one. And on 403 capital equipment, we can defer the radios for 1 year, which means that when I'm sitting here a year from now, I'll have to have a $20,000 line in that, but we can hopefully we'll be in better shape and we can deal with it then. So we took that out. So that's a reduction of $25,956. Line 230, Public Works. This we're requesting funding in the area in the amount of $302,782. This is the reduction, as it's noted on the sheet, is the removal of the ProGeo system. Again, this would be a huge benefit to not only to the department but to our citizens to be able to use the system. But I think we have to push it off for at least a year until we have a little bit better cushion and it's not such a big impact on the budget. I did leave in the school due program. I think I might have mentioned that to you before for scheduling and for capital planning. Line 240, Highway Department. We recommended funding in the amount of $1,565,191. This is a reduction of $689,877, and as I mentioned in my preamble, the biggest number pulled out of here is a little over $615,000, which I'm going to recommend that we put on an infrastructure bond and handle a different way. I left $500,000 in the road account for now, as I explained a few minutes ago. The other things we changed was a $2,870 reduction in maintenance and repairs. Again, we're going to have to just try to pretty much do with what we used last year. On line 106, negotiated salaries, the $49,172 represented a request for new headcount. We took that out, and we removed the request for additional salary for the part-timer. So that was a reduction of $22,464. So we do have some customer service issues to deal with, but we'll have to solve them a different way.
Was there a part-time employee before?
There's a part-time employee now, and what we would like to do at some point in the future is have that individual go to full-time, which would actually be, I think as you pointed out last time, would be more than the 2244, because then the benefits would kick in. But if you don't mind, I'll explain that a little bit.
Please.
We have, if I count out the number of people who call me and they have a gripe about something, almost all the time I called the highway department and nobody called me back. Or I called, my mailbox got knocked down and nobody called me back. And the problem we have is that the phone over in Public Works is, first of all, there's nobody to answer the phone in the garage at the highway department when they're all out on the road anyway, and that's usually when these calls come in, in snowy weather. So there's nobody there to answer the phone. When the calls come into Public Works, the coverage there in the phones ends at about 1 o'clock when Tracy goes home. So the calls go into voicemail. And if it really gets busy, the voicemail gets pulled up, and sometimes she's not even aware of a call. It just kind of doesn't go into anything. So then people get angry that Mr. Dibble didn't call him back, and Mr. Morossi didn't call him back. And, especially for Bobby Dibble, it's really hard to be the customer service guy who has to call everybody back when you're in the truck for 14 hours a day in a snowstorm. So my long-term plan was to try to provide a stopgap where there's a live person to speak to the citizen and find out what, and maybe deal with it offline and not have every single phone call go to the supervisors so that they can do their job better and focus on planning and managing the department. So we wanted her to go to full-time, but again, we're going to have to do that some other time or find some other way to transfer phone calls and have that coverage be available.
Now, how many hours is that first clerk now? 20?
20.
If we increase their hours to, say, 2 additional hours a day to 30 hours, can we still get away? from a legal standpoint, from a state standpoint?
I don't
Paying full-time?
I'm pretty sure that once you cross 20, that's the magic number.
Yeah.
And then
You
you
get basic benefits then?
no, this individual may decline the benefits, but it would be her option, I think. So we're right at the limit right now. But just while we're on the topic, we've actually taken the highway department phone number off the website and we've replaced it with the public works number. So at least when everybody's out in the field, there isn't a phone ringing with nobody answering down at the highway department. It's going to take some time for that changeover to occur, but we're looking at some other strategies to have somebody answer the phone so that our citizens talk to a live person and they feel like their concerns are being addressed. Because I think that the problem is not that our guys are not doing their job. They do a fantastic job. It's a communication issue. So we're going to try to solve that. Any other questions? Okay, going to line 250, planning and zoning. We recommend funding at the level of $204,388 as requested. And you see that little number? It says 1645. That's an error on my sheet. Just cross that out. That doesn't add up into anything. That's a number I forgot to erase. I could have been a wrong cell. I'm a rookie at Excel too. So. I didn't reduce anything in here because, again, there's an awful lot of work that requires legal notices and posting. And I kind of have to go with their recommendation until we have some better history with new postal rates and new advertising rates. Oh, and by the way, the state is considering changing that law about legal notices to give towns some relief. It's something that actually, and getting some signals from Hartford might happen this year. But again, we can't bank on it just yet. Account 260, building maintenance. Recommend funding in the amount of $740,150. I flat funded maintenance and repairs. We'll have to prioritize and squeeze as best we can. You'll see that there's a $15,000 increase in contracted services. And what that represents is, in your original budget book, there was some information that did not get in there in time. Which you have in, I think there's a memo that you have that explains that. And likewise with line 405, the original request was $310,000, but the revised request was $598,000 and some change, I believe. So what we did with that was we put, out of that entire request, we put $105,500 as a recommended capital construction budget, and this is for items that are not eligible to be bonded. The $204,700 is for roofs on this building, the Grassy Plain YMCA, the Johnson boilers, the salt shed out at the transfer station, which by the way, I don't know if you knew that one of the walls blew off the other week before last on a windy day. Fortunately, nobody was there. It was on a Wednesday when the guys weren't there, so nobody was around to get hit because it was a pretty large section. Other repairs to the salt shed, to the maintenance area. So those things that are eligible to be put on a bond, I moved over to that line for consideration, for you guys later on.
I want to just comment on the YMCA building Grassy Plain. $105,000 in repairs. So can you make any inquiries about whether they're willing to buy the place?
It's on my desk right now. I have Marie's card, and we will be speaking about that. Yes.
They're from what I understand, a 501c3.
Yeah.
So they won't go on the tax rolls, but they're getting an awful good deal there.
Right.
And I know the rent is probably, I think it's 25% of what the repairs are here. it's fortunate. It just didn't seem good business to put all this money into a building that we're only getting 22 or I think it's about 22 or 3,000. I'd like to see
It'll take
some
4
kind
years to make up
of.
what it's going to cost.
It's ridiculous. I mean, if we sell it to them, it gets out of our hair,
Yep.
and they can make those repairs.
Yep.
But it doesn't get back into tax rolls. But if we put it up for sale to the general public, there's a chance that because there's a bit of land with that.
Yes.
High school.
Right.
So I'm a little bit disturbed, I guess you could say, about putting all this money into a building we get so little return on.
Yep.
And they certainly take in more money over there than what they're paying in rent. I would think the number of children going in and out of the place.
That is something we're exploring right now, and I have not had an opportunity to meet with them yet, but it's on my calendar for when I get back. But I don't disagree. You're right.
I mean, I would be certainly worth thinking about not funding this this particular item because of we're not going to have the building very long.
So do you know in the past were they interested in buying?
They may have been at one time. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I know we've been collecting rent. They've been there. Say 20 years rent.
More than that, yeah.
Cliff Urchin's time. I know initially they were paying about $18,000 a year, but it hasn't gone up an awful lot.
No, they've been there a long time because the director remembered my daughter who was there when she was 5 and she turns 30 this year. So
but I mean, times are tough. If we're to spend $105,000 on a building that we're maybe getting $22,000 or $23,000 in rent, and the problem is if we sell it to them, we're not going to collect any. We'll get it, as I said, repeat myself. It's one less headache, but we're not
right. Yeah,
going on the tax rolls.
We won't get any tax money from it, but it'll relieve us of this obligation. The YMCA has a new management team, and I've met I can't remember the woman's name at the moment, but I do have her contact information, and I have made an inquiry to ask if we can get together and talk about it.
Because I think if we do sell it, we owe it to the taxpayers to get the best price we can, whether it's from the YMCA or for somebody else.
Sure. Did you have a comment, Paul?
No, Phil, your memory's pretty good. What did we get for the center school? Do you recall?
We got, I think it was either $300,000 or $350,000. And that's a sore point for me because the Board of Finance at the time, for a building was sitting there for 100 years, they took that $350,000 and poured it into 1 year's budget, an asset that's been built up, instead of putting it into the general fund or the capital improvement fund. But they got $350,000, and it's on the tax rolls, and we're collecting. I checked on it recently, $20,800 a year taxes. And those, I think there's 8 apartments in there. As I say, Grassy Plains, there is more land with the Grassy Plains School than there is with the center school.
Yes.
The addition of the $15,000, that was for a consultant we have for our roofs, Silktown, and they have returned that in saving us in repairs 3 times full. So the consultant is a very important person there. That for that $15,000, they saved us a lot of money.
It's like buying an extended warranty on your car. Only roofs leak worse than cars.
Which one is that?
It's the
line 313.
Contracted services,
Okay,
the
yeah.
additional $15,000 wasn't added in the original proposal.
Okay, so all right, it's in there now.
Yeah, it's in there now.
And that's the one that we added when we were doing the high school. They saved us $30,000 immediately. So
Yeah.
it's cheap and twice the price.
And that's a yearly fee?
Yes.
And they deal exclusively with roofs?
Yeah. Basically, there are representatives to fight with the warranty company.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't have that many roofs.
Every building.
I know, but how many? We're talking 10, 12 roofs?
Yeah, but you're talking hundreds of thousands of
No, I
dollars.
know, but I mean...
Phil, I have to tell you, we've had a couple of hard rainstorms in the last 2 months, in my email, I'm on the email system for Public Works for the automated reporting system. Bill, I think you're familiar with that. You know, admin roof.
Right.
And my email just lights up. You know, leak reported in the library, leak reported in the cafeteria. Just boom, boom, boom.
I guess my question is that could we have them on call rather than on retainer?
Well, to get them on call, you have to give them the retainer.
Yeah. It's probably cheaper to have them on retainer than on call.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Okay, moving on to line 270, tree warden. Requested funding in the amount of $84,400, which is the same as the prior year, and that's a $5,000 reduction. We reduced 5,000 contracted services by 5,000 based on the last 18 months' history. So I looked at 08, 09, and I looked at year-to-date, and I think we're okay.
There's a lot of trees around town that got red tape on them that are close to the road, which are our liability. So they look like they're coming down.
Moving on to line 290, emergency management. Maintain the request of $28,500, which was the same as the prior year, no change. Line number 300, fire marshal. Requested funding at $87,750. This is a reduction of $3,200. And again, I flat funded the office expense and split the difference on the request for the assistant chiefs. So give them a little bit more to work with, but not as much as they want. Line 310, Bethel Fire. Proposed funding in the amount of $181,600. This was a reduction of $7,100. Again, we put some new money in that line for some of the things that they need to do, but we'll have to prioritize those against the ongoing needs and work within that line. Line 320.
Did you have any conversation with the chief on that one? Or?
No, not yet. Thank you. Chief is... No, I went over the list and looked at the utilization in the past, but I'll talk to the chief about that. I didn't have a chance to get to him. And same with Stony Hill. We were requesting $144,050, and that's a reduction of $7,500 on the capital equipment line. So again, we put some new money into that for their highest priority items. That didn't fund the whole thing.
You didn't have any, I know that's probably not discussions, but any among yourselves and the fire trucks, both departments are requesting pumpers.
Right.
Yeah. So
No.
they had different specs.
Two pumpers and tanker.
Yes. No, we need to, I think we need to convene a separate meeting on that. There's a number of issues. I think we need a long-term plan so that we schedule out the purchase of these trucks so that they don't become a last-minute emergency item. But one of the things that I would like to do, and I think we did speak about this, is try to get them on standardized equipment because they're using different things. And I think, Tim, I think you brought up during the meeting that if they were ordering trucks and parts from the same supplier, then we would increase our bargaining position. And we have not had an opportunity to do that just yet. I think we have to handle that as a separate item.
You're going to do that on capital equipment also? Tell them to purchase together instead of separately?
Yeah.
Excuse me. And one department buys air packs at one price, another one buys them at another price, and it doesn't make sense.
Right. That's the
In
idea.
other words, those two departments have to work together.
That's right. Okay. Line 330, Registrar of Voters. Recommended funding in the amount of $77,986. Didn't change anything. We're expecting a primary season, possibly multiple primaries with the state elections coming up. And those are expensive. Line 340, Town Boards and Commissions. Recommended funding in the amount of $117,767. And I think there's something missing in this. Yeah, there
Account
is.
507.
Well, it was changed.
Yeah.
507, but it's not online.
Yeah, the formula got knocked out. So that's a change of, so that's a reduction of 4,000. Reduced zoning board of appeals by 1,000 and reduced inland wetland budget by 3,000, and that was based on history of usage.
What are the reasons for all of it? Everyone is an increase from the previous. Is it
legal notices?
Legal notices?
Yeah.
Take a look at it.
All right, line number 350, Health Department. Recommended funding in the amount of $260,489. Modest reduction in office expense and minor reduction in contracted services. And I did check with the department on that. Police Department, number 360. Recommended funding in the amount of $3,535,511. And this is one we changed. We actually took it down a little bit more and then revised that number last night. You'll see we made a modest cut to equipment and supplies, made a modest cut to professional services, and a modest cut to capital equipment. So the changes to that are $9,550. Felt that we have an outstanding police department. We know the situation we have with their cars, with the armory operations, the fact that they have some equipment that's been confiscated by the state that they need to maintain their education and training. So we kind of revised that and wanted to make sure we didn't take too much.
It's also an essential service to the town.
Yes.
As is the Board of Education, the fire department, the highway department. Well, you look and you see a town whose average income probably here is $30,000 a year. We're looking at salaries of $80,000, $90,000 a year. Don't square. You know, we got to seriously look at stuff like that this year. And I've been around long enough. We've been looking for a lot of years at stuff like this. And it's about time we sharpen our pencils. Essential services, providing them to the residents of the town at a level that the people can afford. That's what our job is. We've got budgets. My favorite line is Willie Sutton. Why do you rob banks? He said, that's where the money was. But we got budgets here that are close to $1 million that are non-essential. That's where we got to look. Where the hell are you going to get money out of a tree ward? We did that last year. It was ridiculous. You know, taking money from a guy whose budget was, very small. But I think we got to keep in mind essential service and never mind all this hokey pokey we get involved with.
All right. Okay. Line number 380, Parks and Recreation. Recommended funding at $881,639. The big change here, there's a minor change in maintenance and supplies, a minor change in programs. The big one is pulling out the tennis court repair, which could be a bond item. It could be deferred. I think we have to determine that, but it doesn't need to be in the operational budget this year.
That gets a lot of play. I don't play tennis, but it does get a lot of play up there.
Well, right now I'm planning to recommend that go into an infrastructure bond, along with the roads.
You know, the programs, I see it's a minor change. I think you said you were rounding up, but that's more than a wash. They have the income item that I don't know if it really makes any sense because they take in about $20,000 more. We had a couple of partner rank people here can speak better than that to me. Does this
I
make
think
any,
their income is 305 or
so does it make any sense to reduce this by a couple $100?
Well, there's a position within the programs
Yeah.
that's vacant right now. That's a $20,000, right?
Yeah, that's the $2 an hour thing.
Pardon?
That's the $2 an hour.
Yeah. No, but this money here isn't what they're talking about. The programs.
Yeah, well, within the programs, there's a position.
Yeah.
That was
It's
Maureen.
budgeted, that was Marine at 20,000. We might, we have maybe take a look at that and reduce that by 20. I don't
I
know.
left that in, I was
Yeah.
aware of that, but I left that in assuming that would be replaced eventually.
Okay.
But, these are,
Who knows?
okay. Line 390, employee benefits. Obviously, that's an untouchable line, as we described already. That is funded at the amount of $5,059,561, as requested. And that's the one that is 15%
Won't there
change.
be some? Shouldn't there be some reductions in this because of the employees that you took out of the budget, of the full-time employee in the highway department, and also the request for a full-time employee in the.
Those are,
Yeah, they would be the full-time employee that was requested in the assessor's office. The benefits would probably figured in, wouldn't they?
I don't,
I think Gary said that he didn't include.
I don't think
You
you did.
did? Okay.
No. Phil, I'll double check that
Yeah,
for you. but I'm pretty-
I was thinking that they might be included if they would come out.
Yeah.
You know, the pension, hospitalization, and life and all that.
All right.
Sure.
Line 400, non-governmental agency subsidies. As I described in our meeting a week and a half ago, I did put in a small amount for the agencies that serve our population, and you'll see those are the top 5 up along the top. I did not fund them as requested, but we spent some time checking utilization, the percentage of population that these agencies serve from Bethel. Yes, sir.
I live at Reynolds Ridge, and I know the Meals on Wheels serves a lot of folks up there.
Yeah.
That was pretty conspicuous by its absence.
No, I put that in.
It's new opportunities.
It's called New Opportunities.
372.
It used to be called Meals on Wheels.
Yeah, New Opportunities is the agency that runs it, but actually they didn't.
Oh, I see on the bottom.
Yeah, look at 372. You got
All
it.
right.
They actually got their request for funding in late. It came in 2 days ago. It came in last Friday, but we saw that
Right,
and we put it in.
At the bottom there is the HBA and ARC. You're not putting them in, right?
No, those are 2 new
Yeah.
organizations. Housatonic Valley Association doesn't really have any constituency in Bethel at this time, and ARC stands for the Association of Religious Communities. Again, that's a new one. A year from now, they may be serving Bethel people, but at the moment, I did not recommend funding those because they could not show that they have constituencies in Bethel at this time. So that is requested at the amount of $18,871. Moving on to line 405, we're requesting 370. This is intra-government agency subsidies. We're requesting $373,239. And as we mentioned before, this is the only major change was the Visiting Nurse Association to 20,000 instead of 40. And I have to tell you, I believe that the work that agency does for Bethel is certainly worth 40,000. And in a better time, we may consider moving this particular line item out of subsidies and into the realm of the health department in the future. But we had to stick with the same funding as we had last year, just to try to keep this budget as reasonable as possible. Now, one thing I want to call your attention to is line 366, the paramedic intercept program. This is something we're going to be reviewing over the next month and try to, there are some significant issues with that in terms of the Medicare reimbursement. We may need some help from a congressman to try to straighten that out. But at this point, this 190 is the best number we can come up with, but we are continuing to work to try to bring that down. Line number 410, utilities. We've requested $2,190,404, and as I mentioned in my opening remarks, this has everything. This has the new fire hydrant rates. This has the new fire hydrant rates that the town of Bethel now has to pay the United Water Company from the sale of the Steiner from the Bethel Consolidated. This represents a 12.5% increase over utilities from the prior year, but it's there won't be any more surprises in it. It's got everything in it. And as I think I mentioned to you guys the night of the original presentation, but the water rates had actually been voted on 2 years ago, actually 3, in 2007. And they were put off and put off and put off, and that has contributed to the debt that the water department owes the town. So we have to bring that under control.
Is this total here? Doesn't have the water.
This doesn't have the water in it?
Yeah, it does. It does.
No, it couldn't have.
Can't.
All right. Let me correct that. Sorry, that sheet didn't get corrected. $2,380,404, and that does include the water.
Say that again.
$2,380,404. Line 420, miscellaneous charges and transfers. Recommend $452,032. This does include, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, wage contingency account for negotiations that will begin in the spring.
Is this also the projected or estimated increases for the department heads?
Yes.
Now, last year they took a freeze.
Yes.
Have you approached them about taking another freeze?
Not yet. I would, to be absolutely honest about it, I would not like to ask them to do it 2 years in a row. And I think Mr. Gallagher pointed out last time that it affects, long-term benefits in terms of pension calculations. I think that they were quite generous to do it the first year. I would like to do something to make up, just to show that the town appreciates what they did last year. And the other problem is that with the salary increases that are under contract with some of the bargaining units, we have some assistants who are approaching and in some cases will surpass their boss's salary this year. We have to go talk about that too, as I mentioned. But I would like to do something for those people who have stuck with us.
Well, we've stuck with them.
Yeah.
No one's gotten laid off.
That's true.
They still get their full benefits.
Yep.
So, we have a real issue
passes
here.
out on our department head. That, to me, is a breakdown of whoever dealt with bargaining units. Plain and simple. That's a breakdown of that. Because now, in this whole budget, not one person either loses their job or gets cut back at all. And with an unemployment rate, what it is right now, the Bethel taxpayers are going to have a hell of a time trying to pass a budget like this. As he was saying, Mr. Geer was saying that, realistic terms, when a public works employee makes over $100,000 a year as a salary and not a fully loaded salary, you're really talking $130,000, $140,000. This is double what the average person in Bethel's making. So I have a really hard time with this whole budget.
Well,
that's just one example. I'm not beating up on him, but a truck driver making, even though you're not doing it, $49,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's there's 5 million people standing in line to do it for $25,000.
Yeah.
It's the golden ticket when you get the town job right now.
Are we ready for the next item?
Yes.
Senior center? Okay.
Well,
What is the final amount on that?
that 126.
126, 12.
26
For the senior center, 126 as well.
Right. Well, we
And what are the reductions from?
2,500 from capital equipment and $2,000 from activities. We just flat funded from the prior year, kept it at 30,000. Okay, line 435, library. We made no changes to that. We're requesting $737,618, which is the same as the prior year. Line 440, debt service. Obviously made no changes to that. Requesting $4,539,603. And again, there is potentially close to $500,000 savings that could be realized at some point before this is done. So you can't program that in now.
What was that for again? I know you had written it down here.
What's that?
I know that you wrote it on your narrative here. What would this, the $480,000 come from?
There are bond issues that are eligible for being restructured at a lower interest rate, and there's, interest rates change on a daily basis,
Sure.
as you know. So Barry got a fax literally 5 minutes before we met last Thursday, and from his financial advisor at Webster Bank, who said, you have an opportunity to do this, and the savings would be in the neighborhood of $485,000. But there's some homework that has to go into that, and we're also not sure if you can book that as a savings against this year on debt load, or if you put that back into the general fund. So it could be realized, but I'm not sure how to deal with it. And like I said before, that's really for you and Barry that's in your purview anyway.